Hey guys, I'm Jess, a physiotherapist at Integral Performance Physio, and today I'm going to be talking to you about what you do after you've injured yourself. For example, if you sprain your ankle or your elbow or banged up your knee. The current principle used to handle and treat new injuries is the R.I.C.E principle. R-I-C-E. Rest, ice, compress, and elevate. But this principle is old, outdated, and not fully supported by scientific evidence. For example, ice can actually slow down your recovery because it impairs an essential hormone needed for healing. So the R.I.C.E principle encourages a more passive and sedentary way of treating your injury. As physios, we believe in a more active approach where we educate our patients about their recovery and where we encourage them to have more realistic expectations of their healing process. We also encourage immediate loading and exercise as soon as possible. For this reason, we support the new acronym Peace and Love. Peace and Love. The Peace and Love acronym stands for P, protect, E, elevation, A, avoid anti-inflammatories, C, compression, E, education, and love, L, load, O, optimism, V, vascularization, and E, exercise. P, protect. It is essential to know which activities to avoid. But this doesn't mean stopping all activities, which is a very common mistake that most people do. For example, if you hurt your back, you shouldn't go outside and start shoveling. Or you shouldn't lie in bed all day. You should do the exercises prescribed to you in physio and walk. A, avoid anti-inflammatories. Inflammation is normal. It is an essential part of the body's recovery. This is because it attracts necessary components for healing. It is only at times when you have excessive inflammation when you may want to consider taking an anti-inflammatory. E, education. Probably one of the most overlooked but most important aspects. Often patients come in with small injuries where they become fearful, they compensate, and this leads to a very long and poor recovery. If patients know what to expect, what to do, what not to do, what's going to happen to their body, and the estimated time it's going to take to recover, this is going to lead to a proper and more effective recovery. L, loading. Following an injury, it is important to gradually load the site of injury within your pain tolerance. Avoiding loading can lead to deconditioning, weakness, and a really difficult recovery. Instead, it's important to pick out specific exercises that can be prescribed to you by physio that are performed both safely and at the correct intensity. O, optimism. The psychological component in rehab is often not addressed. Patients demonstrate fear avoidance behavior and misinterpretation of the injury. This is because they don't properly understand the injury. Research has repeatedly proven that maintaining positivity and understanding realistic expectations can lead to better outcomes for recovery. E, exercise. As previously mentioned, exercise is super important. It's important to exercise the rest of your body and the site of injury within your pain tolerance. Exercise promotes vascularization and blood flow, and this is an essential part of recovery. So next time you get injured, think about the Peace and Love acronym and seek out a physio to help guide you and help accelerate your recovery process. Stay safe, everyone.